Are you ready for a test? Okay. I'm going to give you some scenarios, 9 of them. Well, I'll tell you the answer to the first one, but the other 8 are yours. I want you to answer, is the scenario that I give you a seed project based on the characteristics that we've just studied? Okay? So be thinking, because these questions are not as easy as they appear to be. Okay, the first one you see on the screen right now. And the seed project is as a game day for community children as an evangelistic outreach. Now, think of all the characteristics, the 10 characteristics that we just looked at in the last session, and ask yourself the question, is there anything in the title of this seed project that would violate some, all, or even one of the seed project characteristics? And if it does, it's no. Okay, so this first one, a game day for community children as an evangelistic outreach. Yes or no? The answer is no. Why? Because if we do the game day and its purpose is evangelism, it's manipulation. Now, there's a lot of discussion, and as I teach this, about whether that's manipulation or not. It's not manipulation if the kids that are coming are invited to go to either one, and it's optional whether they stay and listen to a presentation of the gospel. But if we do the game day for community children as an evangelistic outreach, the way that's worded says no, that's manipulation. So that would be no. Okay, now see how you do in the next one. And I'll give you a chance to think of each one as we go through. This one, a picnic for hungry children based on a community needs survey. What do you think? Yes or no? The answer is no. Why is it no? It's because it's based on a community needs survey rather than getting on our knees and asking God, God, what are your intentions? What do you want us to do? So this is coming from our idea, not necessarily from God's idea. Now, sometimes these two things come together, and that's fine. But it needs to be done because we believe this is what God is asking us to do, not only because we've done a survey. Number 3, latrine repair at the home of a church member. Yes or no? That's an easy one. No, because a seed project is done for people outside the church. Now, is it bad to repair a latrine at the home of a church member? Absolutely not. But it doesn't qualify as a seed project. Number 4, a government-sponsored literacy program that's bathed in prayer. Yes or no? Trick question, isn't it? We see it's bathed in prayer and we think, oh, of course, that's okay. No, because it's government-sponsored. It's not being done with local resources. Question number 5. A garbage cleanup the same day you decide to do it. Yes or no? No. Why? Because if you do it the same day that you decide to do it, you don't have any time for planning. And this is what a seed project criteria is. It is well planned. Number 6, a seminar on nutrition where the organizing committee serves so well that the community participants only attend. Yes or no? Is it good to plan well? Of course it is. Is it good to serve well? Of course it is. But is it okay to do something where the community doesn't participate? No. So it's not, doesn't meet the criteria because the people participating don't participate. Number 7, media coverage for a seed project to get publicity for the church. It's almost humorous, isn't it? No, because we want God to be glorified, not our local church. Next, number 8, the development and operation of a child care center. Good idea? You bet it is. Seed project? No. Why? Because it is long-term. It's not short and simple. Number 9, community meeting to discuss the formation of a child care center as a result of a time of seeking God's intentions for the community. Yes or no? Yes. There's nothing in the statement of this seed project description that violates any of the 10 characteristics of a seed project. Well, these are just a few ways for us to test whether or not we understand those 10 characteristics. Now again, these characteristics are not laws. They're not things that bind you. They're guidelines. But the more of them that you can include in your seed project, the more successful, on the basis of our experience, the more successful it will be. Okay, what I'd like to do is add 3 more things. We've learned the purpose, we've learned the benefits, we've learned the definition, we've learned some 10 characteristics. Now, the final thing that I would like to focus with you on 3 principles for long-term effectiveness of a seed project. There are 3. They need to be balanced, they need to be focused, and they need to be ongoing. Let me describe what we mean by that. Balanced means that we need to try to do our seed projects so that they demonstrate God's love in all 4 of those areas. For example, here's a graphic that will illustrate that. You've got one church, that's your church, and you need to be doing demonstrations of God's love in each area, physically, socially, spiritually, and in the area of wisdom. That's what we mean by balanced. So you don't just only do seed projects in the area of the physical needs or the social needs. But when you do a given seed project, you try to think about how you can do that, even that one seed project, to demonstrate God's love in all areas. Number 2, a seed project to be effective long-term needs to be focused. What do we mean by that? It means to be balanced ministry in all areas to the same recipients or the same community. For example, look at this diagram. You've got your church, one church, it's doing seed projects in all of these 4 areas, but it's focused on one community. To help us understand what we mean by that, let's look at this question, what I call the focused question. And this is the question: what do you think the long-term impact would be if your church did 4 community seed projects in each of the 4 areas, but you did a physical project in that community, you did a social project with an emphasis on social needs, here you did spiritual, here you did wisdom? What would be the consequence? And if you only did those 4, the consequence would be that that community over here would only see God's love in the physical area, only see God's love in the social area, the spiritual, the wisdom area. And we need the people who don't know the Lord to be able to see His love in every area. Okay, the final one is it needs to be ongoing. And that means many seed projects done over time. Another way to say that is that doing these projects, these demonstrations of God's love, is part of the DNA of the church. So when the community looks at your local church or thinks about it, it doesn't think about it as only holding services on Sunday and Bible studies during the week. Oh, that's the church that has that feeding program. Oh, that's the church that cleans up our streets. Oh, that's the church that... It needs to help the people in the community see that God is concerned about all areas. And the way we do that is we continue to do seed projects. This is not to be done as a response to this seminar or this class. It's something that we get the idea from the class, but it becomes a lifestyle of our church. So this diagram helps us to see that. We have one church, we have the 4 areas, we have one community, and that community sees God's good intentions for them on an ongoing basis, not just once. Okay. I want to show you an example of one church in Tegucigalpa, Honduras. And I talked to the pastor after his church had begun to do seed projects, and they'd been doing it about 1 year. I called him and I said, Alex, I know you haven't probably got a list of them in front of you, but tell me about the seed projects that you can recall that your church has done over the last year. And this is what he told me. I want you to let this sink in. These seed projects had happened in 1 year in this one church, in one community. Number one, look at the chart. They fasted 1 meal a week, and they used the resources of that fasting to feed hungry people. I wish I could tell you the stories, the detail of these stories, because some of them are incredible. They hosted a soccer league in their community that didn't have a place to meet. They did a medical clinic in the church for people of the community. They did a child care class for mothers of the community. They painted speed bumps, which they call in Honduras sleeping policemen. But they painted these speed bumps in the streets because they were so high that when people who weren't familiar with the area, they would drive over them, really damage their cars because at night they couldn't see them. So they painted these. They ministered to the social needs of 20 alcoholics that they knew about in their church. They filled potholes in the streets. And there were, believe me, there were a lot of potholes in the streets. Now, that's not all. Look at the next slide. This is a continuation of what this one church had done in 1 year. They collected clothes for needy children. They placed garbage barrels in the community to collect trash. They constructed concrete stairs on a steep path. They got slippery when it rained. They distributed bed sheets to prisoners in their prisons. And if you don't, the prisons in Honduras don't provide bed sheets or even mattresses, at least at that time. They collected and distributed school supplies for the children whose dads were in jail. That's what Alex, the pastor, remembered. He didn't even have it written down in front of him, but I wrote as he talked to me, and he said, Bob, these are what I can remember of the projects that we did in 1 year. That's one church of maybe 200, maximum 300 people. Wow. What do you think the people of that community thought about the people of God in that local church? Everybody knew about that church because they were different these were people who really cared. What would happen if your church did the same thing? I want to, as we close this session, for you to look at another seed project. Actually, this is a church that did a series of seed projects. They encouraged their people, number one, to individually demonstrate God's love in their businesses or among neighbors. Number two, they had play and game days for the children from a slum community nearby. And they did this every week. They went to visit old people in old folks' homes in the city of Curitiba, Brazil. And this video will just give you an example of the multiplicity of the kinds of seed projects that a given local church can do. This is a middle-class community in Curitiba. Watch.
The church in Curitiba, Brazil, has made a lifestyle of seed projects, truly the God-given ministry of local churches everywhere. In January 2001, Jose, a shoemaker in Curitiba, Brazil, attended a Harvest Basics course taught by Clayton Oliveira, the director of Harvest in Brazil.
José, the shoemaker of the church, got the idea and applied to his community. This is an example for the whole church. As a result, we created a model of work for seed projects. This has been our natural way of working. We have been able to use this as an example to other churches. Despite it being something small, it has been meaningful to teach how discipleship can change a person, a community, and a nation.
Since Jose needed help in improving business and in organizing used shoes for sale, Clayton, who has a business background, visited Jose as both his spiritual and business mentor.
I am a shoemaker. This is what I do for a living. I took the basics course at the church, and I discovered that I wanted to help someone else. So I took Michael as an apprentice and I showed him the skills of a shoemaker. You see, this way he could help his mother and also continue to live with his brothers. That is what I understood I should do.
When Clayton arrived at the shoe shop, he met Micah, then a 14-year-old apprentice. Although business was scarce, Jose was using his spare time to teach the shoemaking trade to this young man who otherwise would be exposed to drugs and violence on the streets. Now, more than 2 years later, Micah has faithfully developed his skills as a promising shoemaker. Jose's demonstration of concern for another person's well-being contributed successfully to Micah's spiritual and emotional growth. At home, Micah's single mother, Roseli, was especially glad to see him cared about in this way. And she needed the bread and milk money her son earned at the shoe shop for the family income.
Quando assisti os estudos do básico, me ajudou bastante.
When I attended those studies, I learned how to take care of my family. And that was important because that gave me encouragement, and I learned how to take care of my kids, and they learned how to understand me better. I learned that the people at the church cared for us.
Now Roseli, Micah, and her other 3 children attend the evening service and study about loving God in the basics course taught in their home church. While Micah acquired a profession, Jose taught him from the Bible. Instead of a life on the streets, he now has the opportunity for a healthy future and an eternal security. The Shoemaker and His Apprentice is just one of many seed projects originating from this tiny 100-member church in Curitiba, Brazil, through their holistic evangelism approach toward their community. Another example is Lorival, whose once successful career was suddenly interrupted with a tragic stroke, leaving him partially immobilized. But Clayton and other church members encouraged Lorival and helped him walk in a nearby park, refreshing him physically, mentally, and emotionally. Today, Lorival dreams of going back to work and is grateful for his wealth of new friends. On typical Saturdays, the church participates in 4 simultaneous seed projects, bringing children from poor neighborhoods to the church to practice basic life skills. At the same time, ladies from the church show others in the community how to do needlework. And a brief outreach to elderly persons living at a nearby nursing home. While many of these activities began as simple one-day outreaches, they have become a lifestyle of reaching people throughout the neighborhood they have claimed for Jesus Christ. Most of all, however, the entire church recognizes that ordinary tasks, when done to the Lord in a spirit of gladness and love, bless both themselves and those they help. Clearly, a vision for seed projects always grows into daily loves for one's neighbors.
Now that you have seen a video, you've seen about the definition, the purpose, the characteristics, and the long-term what's required for long-term benefits. I want to give you an assignment, and the assignment is this. I want you, if you're working as an individual or if you're working in a cohort with people that are right there or available to you on the internet, I want you to take a period of time without looking at this video again, without looking at your notes, and to see how many of these things that we've talked about in this session you can recall. I want you to talk about the 5 principles from seeds. I want you to recall the 2 purposes. I want you to recall the 4-part definition of a seed project. I want you to see how many of the benefits that you can remember, how many of the 10 characteristics you can remember, and how many of the long-term effectiveness principles you can remember. There are 27 of them. See how many of these that you can come up with either by yourself or as a group. And let us hear. God bless.